Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this afternoon. We got in the cool Data East Simpsons pinball machine. Buddy of ours traded this in on an arcade game. And it's got a few little minor issues, so we're going to work through it a little bit. We figured we'd show a little video of us working on it. And then we'll do a video of us playing it. I've had this one before. It's pretty fun. You know, we usually do the older ones. And this one's starting to get pretty old. I think it's 89 or 90. But yeah, cool game. Great theme. Everybody likes The Simpsons, don't they? Got a little bit of wear. Nothing too crazy. Play friendly, everyone. Data East. Why you little? I like this one because it's the early Simpsons. You know, it's just within the first couple years of the show, so it's kind of the iconic Simpsons. Coming through, man. When I was in junior high school, the Simpsons were a big deal. I had the t-shirts. I used to go to the flea market and buy the cheap t-shirts, the bootleg ones. They were about $7. And you could get one that said, I'm Bart Simpson, who the hell are you? And then all the kids would try to wear that to school, and you'd get in trouble at school for wearing it. And so then the next time you'd bring another Simpsons t-shirt, and they'd try to make you change that one too, even though it didn't have the cuss word on it. That was the little games we played whenever we were in the 8th grade. Very cool. We've got it here in the window. You know, you're not supposed to really have these in the window. It will fade them. But it's been sitting here for 2 days. We will be moving it soon, people. Don't worry about it. I don't even know why y'all brought that up. It's got a little bit of wear on the paint. But wear on black paint's easy enough to fix. You just paint over it. The last one we had, the playfield was actually burned. There are some bulbs underneath the playfield, and the last one we had, the bulbs had actually scarred the playfield. Like there was spots that were messed up because of that. But this one doesn't have that. It does have a chipped plastic. I might have to see if I can order one of those. It's a weird one. You wouldn't think that one would chip. The left ramp's a little worn. I don't know if we'll paint that or not. Looks a little rough. Might be better to paint. The green one's not as bad. But basically we want to get it where it plays well. Got a little bit of something on the plastic there. Maybe that can be cleaned up. Almost looks like paint or something. I don't know. I think he said there was something going on with that little plastic there too. Might look into that. Drop targets look good. The cooling towers look good. The scoop up here, or the hole up here, doesn't look that bad, the up kicker. A little bit of wear, but Moe's got a little wear on him. A little bit of wear on this one that's been touched up just a bit. So it's a typical routed game, you know. It's not in mint condition, but it's 30 years old too. A little bit of wear there. And then up here, I think a lot of that's actually wax, that white. That's not wear. Call for Oliver Closeoff. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. The back glass is in really nice shape. I didn't see anything really wrong with it. It has the original displays in it that still work good. And the thing works decent. So I'll set up the tripod. We'll play it just for a game, just so you can see what kind of shape it's in whenever we got it in. It is working. And then we'll work through it a little bit. And I think it was serviced a couple years ago, so it doesn't have the typical problems that they do after they've sat for forever. It does look like it might be missing some kind of trim for the glass at the back. Okay, so I'll set up the tripod. We'll play it a little bit, and then you can see what's going on with it. Okay, so this will be our beginning video. Let's turn her on. Lots of LEDs. You know people love those LEDs now. On a game like this, though, they look pretty good. The displays are working. Backbox looks good. There's bulbs out here and there. So we'll have to look through all that. Okay, let's try to play it. We lost our first one. Whoop. Come again. Okay, the kickback doesn't work, but I believe we already knew that. Okay, and it didn't sense that we lost the ball. So it's got some... okay, I found it. Shoot ramp twice for mystery value, it says. Come again. All right, so it pretty much works, but it has some issues. So we're going to look in the back box and see if we need to do any work back there. I believe there was something going on with the general illumination connector, so we'll check that out and see. So here's inside the back box. This is the soundboard. Everything looks cool. This is the, what did they call that? It's the PPB. Yeah, that's right. PPB. The PPB board, which is basically just a bunch of resistors and diodes. It all looks good. And then you have the big, huge CPU board, which is doing all kinds of stuff. So it looks like this is probably lamps. This is probably solenoids. This may be switches or special solenoids probably. Yeah, I'm going to say that's special solenoids. This would be switches. This is set up a lot like the Williams System 11 stuff. Very similar, at least to me. It's had a NV RAM substitute put in so that you don't have to have batteries on it anymore, and they've removed the battery pack, so everything looks really clean and nice on the main board. So there's not much to do there unless we find something that's not working right. Over here's the power supply, and it has the typical problem that these have where they get burnt connectors. So you see something going on there, and then there is a connector here that's missing, and it looks like they've soldered the wires to the back of the board. So we're going to see what in the world is going on with that. I don't know that they've got it where you can remove it. So we're probably going to have to cut that off and put a new connector on it. Because basically if you have the board soldered in there where it can't be removed without soldering or cutting wires, you basically can't put a different board in it. So, you know, if we sell this to a customer and down the road something happens with the power supply, you know, if they can't buy a new power supply or we can't put in a repaired one or whatever, that's not good. So we need some way here that we can be able to remove that and replace it with a standard one. I'm interested in why we have charring up there. Usually these yellow and white lines are the general illumination, so it could be that before they put the LEDs in it, it was running hot. So we'll see. All right, so I'm going to pull that out. We'll put it on the shelf, on the bench, and take a look at it. So here is the power supply as it was mounted in the game. This is the display section down here. Again, fairly similar to the Williams display section in their power supplies. Big old voltage regulator. With a 19th week of 1990 date code on it, so this is probably the original one from this machine. Fuses. Okay. So I believe the general illumination comes in through here from the transformer, and then it goes out here. But what's going on is this connector here is actually just ground lines. So it's a 6-pin connector with just 2 black lines going to it on the 2 bottom pins. That on the back had a trace that was going to this ground plane on the side. That's completely burnt up to where there is a hole in the board. Wow! So they have the wires through there, and they were just soldered, or I think they were behind it, just soldered to here. Which will work, but again, we're trying to make it where it's removable, and in the future, I'm not going to replace this because it's working fine. But I want it to be repaired where it's removable, so that somebody, if it does finally bite the bullet 20 years from now or whatever, that somebody can remove it and have it repaired, or they can remove it and swap another one in, or they make replacement power supplies. You could put a brand new one in it. So I want to clean that up. So since it was mounted like that, it looks like what happened was that caught on fire for whatever reason. I don't know why that would do that on a ground connector. And then the smoke charred everything else. So that wasn't really through stress there. That's just literally smoke damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these pins, clean up the board the best I can, see if there's any way I can mount the connector back in. I think I may be actually able to do that. I wonder if there's room. Sometimes you can put it in a different spot, but you need it to be somewhere where it doesn't hit another trace. Like I can't put it right there because there's traces there. There's all kinds of stuff there. That's really the only place I can put it. It would fit right there, but on the back there's traces right there, so that won't work. You can also use a different yeah, I may be able to use a different, as long as the plug in the game is the right one, I may be able to like attach wires to the ground and then have them run out and then have it plug in the air with a connector like this, if it's the right one. And then if they were to swap it out, that same connector would just plug into the board instead of plugging into the little harness. So maybe we'll shoot for that if I've got all of that stuff. I don't know if I've got all that kind of housings. But I might surprise you. I think I've got a parts one too where I can just make sure that I got my connectors right. As far as like maintenance on the actual power supply though, it's working good and I don't see anything that's really problematic. These don't have quite as many problems that you need to update for reliability like some of the like the older Bally's do and things like that. So, but I think I'll check in Clay's guide, the pinrepair.com, see if he has any suggestions on recommended upgrades for this sucker. But let me look into that connector first. Let me take these off so I can clean all of this, and we'll see if I can get it looking better. Well, folks, I've had a change of heart. After looking through my goodies, I don't have a replacement Molex piece for that. And I don't have the one that hooks to this either. So this is the one that needs to go in the game on the wires that they cut it off of. So I need to put this back in the cabinet so that it can theoretically plug back into the board. But I don't have the connector there. I could order one, obviously. I don't have that connector. And I don't have a female end for this to rig something up to make this usable. I would love to keep using it, though, because I don't like letting something like that stop me. And the thing was working, right? But I can't leave it in there if it's soldered in place. You know, I got to have it where it's at least removable. So I thought, well, maybe I can find that piece on a parts one. So I started looking through my stash, and I found this. So this is a parts one. The voltage regulator's missing. One of the fuse holder things is missing. But everything else is there. And the connector's good. That one's a little bit burnt up, but so is that one. The connector's good, and I do have this. So I think instead of stealing that connector off of there and trying to put it in there, I really have no reason not to use this actual board because it's not burnt, you know. So I'm just going to put this one back together, and then we'll test it in the game. You can test these if you don't hook everything up. So I'll unhook the outputs of it, and we'll make sure that we've got our correct voltages before plugging everything up. But yeah, so I think I'll just fix this up, and then we'll just make this one our parts board. Might as well make the parts board the one with the hole burn in it. But I'm not sure that there's anything wrong with this, but we'll check though. So let me find a 2N6057, and we'll put that in first. Okay, so this is what all we did. So that was a 2N6057. We've replaced it with a 2N6059, which you can't read. What the world? The way it's inked, you can barely read it. Let me darken it up so you can definitely see it. There you go, you can kind of see it. So it was a 2N6057, it's now a 2N6059, which is a slightly beefier version. Okay. So we got that. So then I replaced all the fuses and made sure that they were the correct ones. There was a fuse holder here that was missing. Put a new one in. Little stuff like that you had to keep in stock, you know. The bridge rectifier tests fine. All of the diodes everywhere test fine. The two transistors that create the voltage for the display test fine. I replaced the main filter capacitor. It was an 18,000 microfarad 25 volt. And I want you to notice that it was an 85 degree capacitor. A lot of times people say, oh, you got to use 105 degree. You got to use it, but the original ones weren't 105 degree. But I did put in 105 degrees, so don't worry about it. Okay? Just a thing. It's better if you put in 105 degree, but if you got the 85 one and you need it, go ahead and use it. Okay? Replace the minor capacitors. I didn't replace this one because it's 150 microfarad, and I don't have that size. Look at this. I finally got radial capacitors that are 100 microfarad, 160 volt. I usually had to put radial ones on, but now I've got axial. That's what I'm going to say. Axial. So I got the right ones of those, finally. You can stop all of the complaining emails about that. We're good. Okay, so I did that. I reflowed the solder on the connectors, but a lot of them already had the solder, had been reflowed by someone else. Back in antiquity. No burn marks, everything looks pretty good. Okay, and if you notice where I'm going to put this plug, it's keyed. One is a female, and the one that goes in here will be a male. So I have to get that right, so make sure that it'll plug in. And then whenever you put it in the game, if you leave these two connectors off, this one runs all of your logic, so it's basically sending the 5 volt, 12 volt, negative 12 volt over to the logic board. So you want to leave that off so you can test it to make sure that you're not going to blow everything up. And then this one runs the display. So it gets in, I think, 90 volt and maybe negative 90 volt from the transformer. And then this does its thing and regulates it and makes it plus 100 volts DC and minus 100 volts DC. And it sends the 5 volts as well to the display to run the actual alphanumeric display. So you definitely don't want this one plugged in if you're testing the power supply, because if it burns up the display, it's no problem. You can fix it. It's going to be $300. So you don't want to do that if you can help it. Okay, so we're ready to put it back in the machine. I'm going to go crimp this on so that it plugs in nice, and I'll show you what it looks like plugged up, and then we'll test it for voltages. Okay, so here are our wires. So they were soldered. I just clipped them off, trying to leave it as long as possible. And then strip it back. Wire strippers. Okay. And then got some little crimpers here. Well, the way I like to do it is actually put the terminal in the thing, and you can squeeze it till it clicks, and it kind of holds it in place. Works pretty good. I'm left-handed though, which causes all kinds of problems. So I've actually taken the jaws out and reversed them in the pliers, and it works better for me. If you're right-handed, it would work even better for you, right? And then you just crimp it together. If you need stuff like this, a good place to get these terminals is a place called GreatPlainsElectronics.com. Ed there that runs that, he's a real cool dude, and he specifically gets stuff for pinball and arcade applications. So he's a cool guy. It's where you can get a lot of that kind of stuff. You can get stuff from Newark too, and Mauser and DigiKey, and a lot of people use places like that. But Ed's a cool guy, and he kind of researches the exact right thing to make sure you get the right size and blah, 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 blah. So it's a cool site. Go check it out, Great Plains Electronics. And then if you go to our website, go to lionsarcade.com, we've got some of these tools and stuff that we use in our videos. We have links to that on our website. There's a parts page. And we've also got some of our t-shirts and stuff like that on there. If you want to support the channel, like our buddy Kelly. Kelly is one of our best viewers. He's probably watching right now. Every time I'm making a new video, he's watching. And then he takes pictures of himself literally all over the western part of the globe wearing our t-shirt. He sent us a picture on the Atlantic Ocean wearing our t-shirt, looking at the beach. On the beach looking at the ocean. A week goes by and he sends us a picture from like freaking Oregon wearing our t-shirt on the other ocean, He's a cool guy. Thank you, Kelly. All right, so I'm going to put the connector on it. We'll pop it up in there and see what it looks like. Okay, folks, we got the multimeter out. Got the board in there. Have the game turned on. But I have the connectors disconnected like I was talking about. So basically there's no power getting over here to the main CPU. You can see there's no voltage, no LEDs on or anything. So why am I doing that again? It's just in case that power supply is screwed up. Like what if it's sending out 12 instead of 5? Well, then you're sending 12 to every board on this chip on this board. Bam, there goes another $300. Don't do that. Same thing with the sound port. Bam, there went $200. Don't do that. So you got to test it first. So they have these cool little test points up here on the top. This is 12 volts unregulated. All right. Negative 12 volts unregulated. All right. 5 volts, 5.01. That's pretty good. Now the 100 volts is a little harder to test because there's no test points for it. But I was able to check them off of the the connector there. By the way, I'm 4 inches from it. It just looks like I'm touching it. I was able to check them off that connector there. There's probably a couple other spots here where you can grab it. Well, that ain't one. So there's the -100. And the other one, I believe, is this one. Maybe. Boop, boop, boop. Nope, that's not it. Well, I checked it on the pins and it's fine. I just can't, you'd have to, if you put like a connector on there and put the pin in there, it'd be all right. But anyway, I checked and they're both there. So there's a +100 and -100. So that should be good for the display, which I haven't plugged in yet. You can see our new connector. Look how beautiful. We fixed it like it should have been fixed. Now, you might have saw some of the pins on the other connectors are a little charred too. See that one? But it looks as if they've been replaced. So the housing is a little charred, but the actual pin has been replaced in it. So I think we're good. So I'm going to turn it back off, plug those 2 connections in, and then hopefully it'll boot right back up. So we should be good. Got the display plugged back in. Let's see if she'll boot up. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. The display looks fine, but it already did. You know, we didn't do anything with that. So I think everything's good. Okay, so why would those 2 ground wires burn up like that? Let's see if we can find it in the schematics and figure out why in the world that was such a screw up. Okay, so this is the pertinent part on the schematics. All the noise of things screaming and dying in the background is from an arcade game that's on, Area 51. So don't be distracted by that. Okay, so in the schematics it shows you that from page 28, the power wiring diagram, it sends 25 volts AC for the solenoids and 13 volts AC for the lamps through these wires, and they come over here, and they go over here, and they go into 2 bridge rectifiers. And then the bridge rectifiers do their thing, and they're basically just diodes, and they turn it into DC. Whew. The sound's working. And so, once it's DC, the positive is 34 volts DC for the solenoids. The negative is tied to the negative of the other one, and the negative of the capacitor, right? And this one, the positive, is 18 volts for the lamps. And the lamps are strobed, by the way, so that's really only 6 volts is all that the lamps get. Okay. So the negatives, the grounds are the grounds are tied together, and that's the 2 wires that were all burnt up. So basically what happened was the bridge rectifier shorted and started pulling all kinds of amps and burnt up the wires at the weakest joint, which was where the plug touches the board. So that makes sense. I wonder, I guess this is another situation where there should be a fuse on these AC lines, because if that starts happening, a fuse should blow over here somewhere, but they don't have one. Maybe it's on the power, maybe it's before that. Let's go see if it's before that. This is the power transformer, and there are in fact 8 amp fuses on the AC lines. It's just whenever that bridge shorted, it didn't blow the fuse, I guess, or something. Hard to say. Or somebody had an 80 amp fuse in there instead of an 8 amp fuse. There's no 0 there, people. You got to use what it actually says. If it says 8 amp, put in an 8 amp. Don't put in a 15 amp. You'll catch things on fire like your house. Don't do that. Okay, so I think we solved the problem and figured out what the issue must have been. So yeah, that's that. On to the next thing. Okay, folks, so that's enough for today. Next time we'll work on the light bulbs, we'll work on the switches and the solenoids and see if we can figure out what's working and what's not working. So make sure to leave your comments below what you think so far. Hopefully if you've got a power supply for a Data East or a Williams System 11, which is similar, this will help you fix yours. So somebody just snuck in the door. Who in the world was that? I didn't catch them. They were off camera. So leave your comments below and let us know what you think. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And make sure to check out my brother Donnie. If you don't know about that, if you like watching us work on these arcade games, pinball machines, you probably like watching us work on old buildings. My brother Donnie and I have a couple buildings we've bought in a town near here that we're fixing up to help revitalize downtown. So go check that out. It's the My Brother Donnie channel down below. And we will see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it.